The House will be in order. Eighth order of business. With the consent of the House, the Rules Committee has relieved of the following bill. Substitute Senate Bill 5588. And the bill is placed on the second reading calendar. Hearing no objection, so ordered. The Speaker is signing the following bills. Clerk will read.
Engrossed Substitute House Bill 1097, Engrossed Second Substitute House Bill 1618, Engrossed Substitute House Bill 2306.
The House will be at ease for just a couple minutes. The House is at ease.
Of unemployment in our state, we don't need.
The House will be at order if members can take their seats. Sixth order of business, second reading of bills. We'll take the following bills in the following order. Engross Substitute Senate Bill 5788, Substitute Senate Bill 5798. Engross Substitute Senate Bill 5796, Engross Senate Bill 6087, Engross Senate Joint Memorial 8005, Senate Bill 6094, Substitute Senate Bill 6115, Substitute Senate Bill 6121, Substitute Senate Bill 6197, and Senate Joint Memorial 8007. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Engross Substitute Senate Bill 5788. Clerk will read.
An act relating to accessibility
Last
for
line.
service. Insert associated with a person with a disability.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules be suspended, and engross Substitute Senate Bill 5788 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Engross Substitute Senate Bill 5788 on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 30th, Representative Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll be very, very brief. This bill is really about expanding access to disability services through service animal training and proper usage, and protecting the individuals who are using service animals from being discriminated against and not denied access to the buildings. I urge your support.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 19th, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are also going to recommend a yes here. We have a couple of concerns, Madam Speaker, about where does this well-intended policy end. At some point, does it begin to be an encroachment on the property rights of property owners? But for the moment, at this point in time, and with the nature of how this is this drafted. We think it is a good and reasonable policy. Please vote yes.
Thank you. Additional remarks? Seeing none, the question before the House is final passage of engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5788. The Speaker is about to open the roll call machine. Speaker has opened the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Chop, Representative Street, Representative Paulette, Representative Ramos, Representative Hackney, Representative Santos. Representative Hackney, would you like to vote orally?
Yes, I vote yes.
Representative Hackney votes aye. Would any member like to change their vote? The Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will announce the record.
Madam Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5788 is declared passed. Substitute Senate Bill 5798. Clerk will read.
An act relating to extending the required notice
Last
of
line.
cancellation, effect July 1st, 2025.
With the consent of the House, the Business and the Consumer Protection and Business Committee amendment will be adopted. Hearing no objection, so ordered. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules be suspended and substitute Senate Bill 5798 as amended by the House will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 5798 on third, as amended by the House on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 32nd, Representative Ryu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask you to support, along with the rest of us, for this bill. When our insurance policies, especially homeowners policies, or even commercial policies are non-renewed or canceled, we have a harder time trying to find replacement policies that are just as good or hopefully just as affordable as what we've been carrying. And so here we're extending the renewal notice requirement from 45 days to 60 days. As the bill came over from the Senate, it included automobile policies. And unfortunately, automobile policies are 6-month policies usually. Some of them are a year, unlike the homeowners and commercial policies. And so we rolled it back to the 20 days that it's on the books right now. And fortunately, Washingtonians, we have a lot more access to automobile insurance products. So I hope you will agree with me and vote for this bill.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 31st, Representative Robertson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The good lady from the 32nd gave an excellent explanation as to what the legislation does, and I urge you to join me in supporting this.
Thank you. Additional remarks. Seeing none, the question before the House is the final passage of substitute Senate Bill 5798 as amended by the House. The Speaker is about to open the roll call machine. Speaker has opened the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Would any member like to change their vote? The Speaker is about to lock the roll call machine. The Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will announce the record.
Madam Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, substitute Senate Bill 5798 as amended by the House is declared passed. Engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5796. Clerk will read.
An act relating to common interest communities,
Last line.
January 1st, 2025.
The housing amendment is before us for the purpose of amendment. Amendment 1236. Clerk will read.
On page 1 of the striking amendment, strike
Last
all
line.
material, correct the title.
The good member from the 17th to move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Speaker. I move Amendment 061, page 1, line 2.
Actually,
We'll do the 1236.
it's been moved and second we adopt Amendment 1236. Remarks. The good member from the 17th, Representative Harris.
Thank you, Speaker. This amendment, I would love to say it's simple, but it's not. It's pretty extensive. It actually takes this bill and makes it a study. And I've heard from many of my HOA owners, actually not owners, but presidents, who manage these organizations as volunteers. They have significant issues with this bill. This would make it a study, would kick it out for a little while to study it longer. Would ask for your approval of this.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 21st, Representative Peterson.
Good afternoon, Speaker Orwell. Thank you, and it's good to see you. Asking for a no vote on this amendment. The underlying bill is actually, a lot of the people that are in this amendment have actually been part of the creation of the underlying bill. Not everybody. We do know that there's still more work to do, but the underlying bill is some space where there was a lot of agreement, and more work will come in future years with some trailer bills and some more perfection of this policy. But right now, this is a good start, and so asking for a no vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks. Seeing none, the question before the House is adoption of Amendment 1236. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. No. The amendment is not adopted. With the consent of the House, the Housing Committee will be adopted. Hearing no objections, so ordered. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules be suspended, and engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5796 as amended by the House will be advanced at third reading. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5796 as amended by the House. Remarks. The good member from the 21st, Representative Peterson.
And thank you again, Speaker Orwell. You know, nothing really gets the blood flowing and the heart pumping like a 200-page bill on common interest communities. But this is the important work that has to be done sometimes in this body and the body across the rotunda. This is really trying to modernize the statutes that homeowners associations and common interest communities work under. Currently, there are 4 different statutes in law, and it has just become unwieldy. Anytime we're trying to make some alignment in one, we have to make alignment in 3 others. This is an attempt with the Uniform Law Commission to really make a more cohesive piece of work. Again, as I stated earlier in discussing the amendment, this is a lot of space that was agreed upon, and we took an amendment in committee to kind of further find more agreement. There is a lot of space that maybe you, Speaker Orwell, are hearing from your communities where there is not agreement on, and that's why the effective date of a lot of the work here is put out for a few years so we can continue to have these conversations. But right now, this is an important step moving forward for some consumer protections, and again, really making sure that we're modernizing the way that we do business here in the state of Washington with so many members of our community living in these common interest communities or homeowners association. And because of that and the hard work done by the prime sponsor, I am asking for a yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 8th District, Representative Connors.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also appreciate all the good work that was done in the Housing Committee on this bill, and that the fact that we were able to work in a bipartisan solution to add an amendment to this bill we're viewing today. I also really appreciate the congeniality of the member across the rotunda who worked with me to craft an amendment that helped the bill significantly. Unfortunately, today, I'm asking for a no vote. You might see a few yeses on our side. The bill itself is, I think, probably an important bill. It is really hard when we're doing our work here, and hard for people that are wanting to understand their common interest communities to have to go to 4 different RCWs to try to figure out how things work. So it's not that I don't think the bill is not important work, but we are in a short session right now, Madam Speaker. We have 60 days to do our business. As the good member mentioned, this is 194 pages of new legislation that's trying to be put together with the intent that there's already a trailer bill coming on this bill. So I think it would be in my best interest, in your best interest, to say, hey, let's wait until the long session. Let's work on this in the interim. Let's get all the stakeholders in the room. Let's really make this bill right. Let's make it something that the people of the state of Washington can understand. Let's make sure that it works with contract law and we're not violating contracts for those folks that already have CC&Rs and things in place in their community that they're following current law. So unfortunately, like I said, I'm asking you to vote no with me today for those reasons, but understand the intent behind the work.
Thank you. Additional remarks. Seeing none, the question before the House is final passage of engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5796 as amended by the House. The Speaker is about to open the roll call machine. Speaker has opened the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Would any member like to change their vote? The Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the... The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker, there are 59 yeas, 36 nays, 2 excused.
I received a constitutional majority. Engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5796 as amended by the House is declared passed. The House will be at ease for a moment. With the consent of the House will immediately reconsider the vote by which engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5796 as amended by the House passed the House. Hearing no objection, so ordered. The question before the House is final passage of engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5796 as amended by the House. On reconsideration. The Speaker's about to open the roll call machine. Speaker has opened the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Would any member like to change their vote? The Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will announce the record.
Madam Speaker, there are 59 yeas, 37 nays, 2 excused.
I received a constitutional majority. Engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5796 as amended by the House on reconsideration is declared passed. Engrossed Senate Bill 6087. Clerk will read.
An act relating to the fire service training account, firefighter joint apprenticeship training program.
With the consent of the House, the Appropriation Committee amendment will be adopted. Hearing no objection, so ordered. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules be suspended and engrossed Senate Bill 6087 as amended by the House will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Engrossed Senate Bill 6087 as amended by the House on third reading and final passage remarks. The good member from the 34th, Representative Fitzgibbon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Rising to ask for your support for this bill, which increases the share of fire insurance premiums which are directed into the fire service training account. We know how important our firefighters are for keeping all Washingtonians safe, and by increasing the diversion into this account, we can improve the quality and the predictability of funding for training our firefighters, including hopefully adding apprenticeships through the State Fire Marshal's Office. Urge your support.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 25th, Representative Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I too rise in support of this bill offered by the good gentleman from the 14th Legislative District from the body across the rotunda. As was previously mentioned, this increases modestly the tax going into the fire service training account by 5% from 20 to 25%. Please vote yes.
Thank you. Additional remarks. Seeing none, the question before the House is final passage of engrossed Senate Bill 6087 as amended by the House. The Speaker's about to open the roll call machine. Speaker has opened the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Would any member like to change their vote? Representative Berquist, Representative. Would any member like to change their vote? The Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will announce the record.
Madam Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Have received a constitutional majority. Engrossed Senate Bill 6087 as amended by the House is declared passed. Engrossed Senate Joint Memorial 8005. Clerk will read.
To the Honorable Joseph R.
Last
Biden
line.
Jr., State of Washington.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules be suspended. And engrossed Senate Joint Memorial 8005 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Engrossed Senate Joint Memorial 8005 on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 32nd, Representative Ryu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this is a letter to Congress asking them to act on updating our de-risking regulations because things have changed. And also we're asking them to work with our own Department of Financial Institutions because there are new ways of banking now because some communities are trying to send money back home or to relatives or friends where there are wars and they need really, anyway, so we are asking them to update federal regulations about banking. So I hope you can support this.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 31st, Representative Robertson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Many of us are concerned about the need for this. I mean, do we really need to tell the folks in Washington, D.C. need to update their banking regulations? You're going to see many of the no's because, quite frankly, it should be being done. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks. Seeing none, the question before the House is final passage of engrossed Senate Joint Memorial 8005. The Speaker's about to open the roll call machine. Speaker has opened the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Slatter, how do you vote? Would any member like to change their vote? The Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will announce the record.
Madam Speaker, there are 59 yeas, 37 nays, 2 excused.
Having achieved a constitutional majority, engrossed Senate Joint Memorial 8005 is declared passed. At this point, we're going to defer action on Senate Bill 6094. It will retain its place on the second reading calendar. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 6115. Clerk will read.
An act relating to speed safety camera
Last
systems.
line.
Strike sub 8, insert sub 11. This section expires June 30th, 2030.
The Transportation Committee amendment is before us for the purpose of amendment. Amendment 1237. Clerk will read.
On page 7, line 1 of the striking amendment.
Last line.
Beginning July 1st, 2024, and insert strike beginning July 1st, 2024.
The good member from the 27th to move adoption of the amendment.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. I move Amendment 1237.
It's been moved and seconded. We adopt Amendment 1237. Remarks. The good member from the 27th, Representative Fye.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. This was a late-breaking amendment that was necessary to move this bill forward. This is all about speed safety cameras and work zones, and this is a technical amendment that's necessary to allow, rather than having a stated date for the effective date for the program, it's changed to allow for that date to be removed and to have the regulations that will be developed by state agencies be in effect only after that the program cannot go into effect until rulemaking is completed.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 39th, Representative Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We agree with the good member from the 27th about the technical fix, and I'm urging a yes vote today.
Thank you. Additional remarks? Seeing none, the question before the House is adoption of Amendment 1237. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The amendment is adopted. Now the question before the House is the Transportation Amendment as amended. Remarks? All those in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. The amendment is adopted. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules be suspended, and substitute Senate Bill 6115 will be, as amended by the House, will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 6115 as amended by the House on third reading and final passage. Remarks? The good member from the 27th, Representative Fye.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The body has seen this bill in different forms the last two sessions. The purpose this year is to perfect the bill so we can go forward with a program to have camera photo enforcement in our construction zones. So I would repeat that. This relates only to construction zones, and we know we have some very serious injuries and fatalities in work zones, and we want to make sure that people recognize that people are at risk when working on construction zones. We cleaned the bill up to make it, I think, more effectively, so that we could more effectively implement it. And in particular, that we will have an awareness program prior to the effective date of this program. I urge adoption.
Thank you. Additional remarks? The good member from the 13th, Representative Dent.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is, I've always struggled with cameras and camera bills. I find it to be a challenge, and this bill was no exception for me. I just kind of feel like sometimes we give up some of our freedom to put cameras out there. And but you know, our workers that work on our highways are pretty important, and they work hard. And it's not an easy job. I don't envy what they do. And you know, when I live over here during session, I live in a fifth wheel. Bringing it over just a few days prior to session, I came across the Vantage Bridge, and you know, we're going to start rebuilding it this year because it keeps having holes in the deck. And as I came across the bridge, and we were all slowing down because there were these WSDOT folks who were out there working on the bridge, and I slowed down, and there was one of the workers just about 3 feet from the lane that I was in, and the lane divider, and then in towards him, there was a hole in the bridge, and he was on his hands and knees fixing his hole. And all this traffic is coming across the bridge, and I think, wow, I don't know that I'd want to do that. And he was doing it. And I think that the least we can do is find a way to protect our folks that are out there taking care of our highways and looking out for us. So that day, he changed my mind. And I think we should encourage people to slow down these construction zones where our folks are out there in harm's way. And I'm asking for a yes vote.
Thank you. Additional remarks? The good member from the 20th, Representative Orcutt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Rising in support of the bill as well. And, you know, I have some of the same reservations as the gentleman from the 13th. I'm not a big fan of cameras and using them for enforcement. But, you know, I worked on the tow truck bill for a few years, trying to get blue lights on those because they're working out there alongside our highways where, you know, people are zipping by, you know, in some areas 60 miles an hour if they're following the speed limit. Some areas it's 70 miles an hour if they're following the speed limit. But oftentimes those zones are dropped down to 50 or sometimes even 40 out on the freeways. There's plenty of signage telling people that they need to slow down. There's plenty of visual cues to people that they should be slowing down. And I'm really concerned because oftentimes when I go through, I'm looking at some of the construction workers, and sometimes they're back to traffic. And if you think about being on a construction zone, just take away the highway aspect of it for a minute, there's a lot of dangers that are in front of those workers, beside those workers, and maybe even behind those workers as a result of being on a construction zone. Now add to it that you've got traffic coming through at a high speed, and it makes these zones that much more dangerous. One of the reasons why I'm supportive of cameras in this situation is because law enforcement can't really sit on one side of the construction zone and somebody go through, and then they have to go through at a faster rate to follow them. So it's very, very difficult to do enforcement any other way. And while I'd rather enforcement be done with a police officer in a car on site, it just doesn't work, and it adds to the danger of this situation, and those people tend to get away. And, you know, that's great that, you know, they got away this time and nobody got hurt, but what happens next time? So I do think this is an important piece of legislation. It is important for the safety of our workers. It's even important for the safety of the drivers out there. Because if they hit somebody or hit something when they're going through oftentimes very constrained lanes, they could injure themselves as well. So this is a very important public safety all the way around. That's why I'm rising in support of it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks? Seeing none, the question before the House is final passage of substitute Senate Bill 6115 as amended by the House. The Speaker is about to open the roll call machine. The Speaker has opened the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Would any member like to change their vote? The Speaker is about to lock the roll call machine. The Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will announce the record.
Madam Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Have received a Constitution majority. Substitute Senate Bill 6115 as amended by the House is declared pass. We will defer action on substitute Senate Bill 6121. It will retain its place on the second reading calendar. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 6197. Clerk will read.
An act relating to the law enforcement officers. Insert disease under RCW 51.08.165.
With the consent of the House, the Appropriation Committee amendment will be adopted. Hearing no objection, so ordered. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules be suspended, and substitute Senate Bill 6197, as amended by the House, will be advanced at third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 6197, as amended by the House, on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 25th, Representative Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I rise to urge a yes on this today. This bill here makes some changes to the Left 1 account, the law enforcement officers and firefighters retirement accounts. A couple of things it does. It eliminates the statute of limitations to apply for the special death benefit. It makes some changes to the definitions as to who can participate in it, and makes it clear that overpayments and mistakes made by the employer are the employer's responsibility. So urging a yes.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 34th, Representative Fitzgibbon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Also rising in support of this bill, the good lady from the 25th explained the bill very well. We know that not only do our law enforcement officers and firefighters work very hard to protect the safety of our constituents, but they also put their lives on the line in doing so. And that's why it's so important that we provide for their retirement security through the law enforcement officers and firefighters retirement system. This bill makes a number of changes, some of which are more technical in nature than others, but to ensure that that remains a strong plan, that its governance and its funding ensure retirement security for those public servants who have given so much to protect our state. So I urge your support.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 6th District, Representative Foltz.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Urge the adoption of this great piece of legislation from the good senator from the 6th District. I know he's worked on this issue for quite a few years, trying to get it to this point. So I think it's important that we pass this legislation and do our best that we can support our law enforcement and firefighter personnel across the state. Their jobs are extra demanding, extra hard, extra physical, and it's important that they have a safe, secure retirement, as many of them tend to retire earlier than for like myself, who generally works in an office and air conditioning and heat and a comfy chair most of the time. So I think this is a good piece of legislation, so urge its passage.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 25th, Representative Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I apologize if I misspoke earlier. It's the Left 2 plan, not the Left 1. I don't want to give an entire class of retirees some false hope, so I stand corrected. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 20th, Representative Barno.
Well, I was going to correct the good member from, but I will say this is really good legislation, and ever since coming to this body, 4 years ago, I've heard about this issue. I've talked about this issue. It's so great that this policy is actually moving forward to remove the statute of limitation on death benefits, to expand those benefits to folks who are employees of fire districts who are working alongside our first responders and with our first responders. This is just a really good bill, and something that I think that recognizes the effort of those people in our community who make sure that we're safe, that our communities are safe. So really excited to be able to encourage a yes vote today.
Thank you. Additional remarks. Seeing none, the question before the House is final passage of substitute Senate Bill 6197 as amended by the House. The Speaker is about to open the roll call machine. Speaker has opened the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Fye, would any member like to change their vote? The Speaker is about to lock the roll call machine. The Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will announce the record.
Madam Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
I received a Constitution majority. Substitute Senate Bill 6197 as amended by the House is declared passed. Senate Joint Memorial 8007. Clerk will read.
To the Honorable Joseph
Last line.
Jr., Congress from the State of Washington.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules be suspended, and Senate Joint Memorial 8007 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Senate Joint Memorial 8007 on third reading and final passed as remarks. The good member from the 37th, Representative Santos.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Asking for your support of this Senate Joint Memorial, requesting, as the title indicates, Congress to fully fund the 40% of the cost of the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Madam Speaker, you know that this year we've spent a lot of time focusing on the fact that we do not fully fund our special education needs. And we have really tried to make it a priority within the constraints of our own budget, our own revenues. But Madam Speaker, we are missing a vital partner in this effort, and that is the federal government. You may know, Madam Speaker, that the predecessor of the IDEA was the Education for All Handicapped Children Act that was adopted in 1975. And as early as that date, Madam Speaker, the federal government made a pledge to the states to assist in paying for up to 40% of the average per pupil expenditure. Madam Speaker, there was a Congressional Research Service report that was done in 2019, and if I may read from that.
Please proceed.
It states that in 1975, with the enactment of the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, it was determined that the federal government would pay up to 40% of APPE to assist with this excess cost. Madam Speaker, however, the report goes on to say that in fiscal year 2019, the Part B grants to states appropriation of $12.4 billion provided approximately 14.3% of APPE. We need the federal partners to be our partners, and this joint memorial asks them to pay serious attention to this long-standing shortfall. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 16th, Representative Rude.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll be voting yes for this. If you do see some no's, it's probably because the federal law says up to 40%, and some have indicated this is a broken promise. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. Also, the fact that it's a memorial is essentially a letter to Congress, doesn't have the force of law. However, You've heard a lot this session about the importance of special education funding. I agree with everything from the previous speaker, the chair of the Education Committee. I would like to see 40% instead of 14%. That could go a long way in our state to address the gap in special education funding. So strongly asking for a yes.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 19th, Representative McIntyre.
Thank you and good afternoon, Madam Speaker. I would love to see other entities out there pay 100%. But we have to understand that these things don't come without costs, not just money costs, but costs in strings attached, if you will. When the federal government often assists or pays for things, often we also get other things that come with it that aren't so welcome. And I've struggled a little bit through this on what is the role of the federal government in being a partner. And as I reference the Constitution, the state and federal Constitution, which we both swore an oath to uphold and protect, if you look in the federal Constitution, there is no reference to education. And yet today, the Department of Education at the federal level has 4,400 employees. They don't teach anybody, but there's 4,400 employees at the federal level. They have a budget larger than Washington State's entire operating budget. It is a huge budget. And looking at, well, they don't have any federal mandate in their Constitution to be able to provide education. They find it to be something good to do. But we in Washington State do. In our Constitution, we do have a mandate that we will provide good quality education to our children, all our children. And so while I would love to say, hey, pull your fair share, come in, I really, really want to rely on the strong autonomy of our state. We have good policies. We have the thought, the know-how, the brains to be able to work our way through this. We have the revenues to be able to fix it. We can ask others at the federal level for money to help us out with things, which we do commonly in other government affairs. But I'm afraid of I'm not going to impugn anybody, but Congress isn't always the best ally in some things. And so, in the best way, they're great people, all of them. Fantastic people. But the mechanisms of the federal government, as you know, Madam Speaker, don't allow them to make good on promises kept from the 70s. It just isn't there. So we could say, well, let's make a new promise of 40%. Or we could say, please give half. Do half, meet us halfway. There's all kinds of arrangements we could make. But the reason I'm a no on this, getting to conclude the point, is that I want to rely more on our autonomy. It's our kids, it's our schools, it's our taxpayers, and it's our education plan. We can do it. I do not want to rely on a false hope, sending letters to Congress that we may get something. We can do it, and I think we should. Please vote no on this.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good member from the 35th, Representative Couture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Rising in support of this bill. The good member from the 16th pointed out that there was some flaws within the letter itself, maybe some misunderstandings. However, I think the spirit and intent of the letter is that we would like the federal government to do a little bit more to help out our special ed families and our special ed system. They did create the IDEA, and we do have to follow that federal law. So it seems appropriate that they should, not give us a partially funded mandate, right? But IDEA is good for our students, and it does help a lot of families. However, I would also say that we should also, in the state of Washington, rise to our commitment and our paramount duty to fully fund education at the same time. And so I think while we're asking Congress, I would hope that me and you, Madam Speaker, we can strive to do the same as well and fully fund special education. It's our paramount duty, and make education great for all of our families. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional remarks. Seeing none, the question before the House is final passage of the Senate Joint Memorial 8007. The Speaker's about to open the roll call machine. The Speaker has opened the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Would any member like to change their vote? The Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. The Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will announce the record.
Madam Speaker, there are 90 yeas, 6 nays, 2 excused.
Have received a constitutional majority. Senate Joint Memorial 8007 is declared pass.
Second read of bills will take the following bills. Engrossed second substitute Senate Bill 5955. Senate Bill 5419. Substitute Senate Bill 5919. Senate Bill 5952. Substitute Senate Bill 6099. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Engrossed second substitute Senate Bill 5955. Clerk will read.
An act relating to mitigating harm and improving. Section 6 of this act.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and engrossed second substitute Senate Bill 5955 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Engrossed second substitute Senate Bill 5955 on third reading and final passage. Remarks, the good member from the 33rd Legislative District, Representative Orwell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in strong support. I want you to know this is a first step to really address the impact of what's a very large and growing airport in the community I'm from. We have an amazing community. It's beautifully diverse. We have 140 languages spoken to one of our school districts. We also have incredible health disparities, and we realize that there are impacts of noise and air pollution, and we want to be able to move forward on helping homeowners. One of the things that happened years ago is that there was federal packages put on a small number of homes in our area, and about a fourth of those failed pretty quickly, and that company went bankrupt. And what we have found is that there's a number of people with like these triple pane windows that have failed. And one story is Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee had to retire early from Boeing to take care of his wife who had a stroke. And they can't see out their windows, and they're also have mold and are very toxic. And they've been waiting 8 years to try to get new windows. The federal dollars do not allow the fixing of these port packages. We've been trying to advocate for those, but it may take a while for that to change. And so we really wanted to partner with the community and the cities to begin to look at this mitigation. And we also worked with the port. So this will help create the equity fund. This will have funds from the port. It'll have hopefully funds from the state as well as the cities to begin to, one, inspect the homes and see the extent of the mold damage, as well as the steps to fix those packages. And again, Mr. Speaker, this is the first step. We know that a lot of people are impacted by noise and pollution, and we want to be able to advocate for our community. Again, we're grateful for this first step. Urge your support.
For the remarks, the good member from the 12th Legislative District, Representative Gaynor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's a very good description of what has actually transpired. There are some concerns on our side that, there are things that happen in life when we make choices where we reside. What are the availability of housing options? And in some cases, people are put in places that they really don't fully understand the impacts that they have in where they're living. That being said, there was a promise given to these people that their homes would be cared for. And when you don't have adequate or the proper installation, and you have failure on a promise, not only just the actual installation of the windows and some insulation that's there should be a remedy. And unfortunately, since the contractors were gone, there is no place to go. And I do believe that the federal government there should be a change in the way that money is being made available. But in light of the fact that it's not there, this is a good step on our part to take care, and when I say take care, I mean to remedy the failures and also to fully implement the grants that are being allocated now. So although, as I said, you may see a mix on our part, I would encourage a yes on this.
Further remarks, the good member from the 2nd Legislative District, Representative Wilcox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, you may recall, since you're from Pierce County too, that a year or so ago there was a lot of uproar over a process that said we need to put a great big airport in rural Pierce or rural Thurston County, and part of the pressure for that came because it's really hard to live close to a big airport, and people that currently live close to a big airport felt like they wanted to share the burden a little bit. And that process didn't come to a very good end, but it sure made me and the people that I represent aware of the challenges. And it seems to me that we ought to be willing to help mitigate the burden for the people that are living in those kinds of places. I've got another reason to support this too, Mr. Speaker. It turns out that I've spent most of my life in a business that I love, but is not always the most desirable neighbor. I know you're probably as surprised as I am to find out that a chicken farm is not everyone's dream neighbor, but people are pretty understanding. They understand who was there first in many cases, but at the same time, if you are part of that, you do your best to be a good neighbor and try to mitigate whatever unpleasantness there is. And it seems to me that the state of Washington can help the neighbors and help that great big airport in King County be the best neighbor that it possibly can, and we ought to support this. Thank you.
Further remarks, the good member from the 37th Legislative District, Representative Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am going to vote for this bill, reluctantly. Reluctantly because it does not go far enough, and it does not fulfill the level of promise to make whole communities. As recently as the time I've served in this body, from the harms of these mega projects that promise broad regional benefits. I ask you to think, Mr. Speaker, how many times have you flown in and out of Sea-Tac Airport? The neighborhood I grew up in on North Beacon Hill was notorious for not being able to have events, whether in a private residence or even at a school, when air traffic started increasing because they couldn't hear, let alone all the air pollution. Mr. Speaker, I grew up on Beacon Hill, and this package does not support many of the neighbors that I grew up with who still live there in older homes. But I agree with the gentleman who spoke earlier that a promise was made and an effort was made. And though it was no fault of the state that the contractor did not provide the best service and materials, those homeowners should not be stuck with the bill. I only ask, Mr. Speaker, that we remember, before there was a Sea-Tac airport, before there was a third runway, before there was a regional light rail, before there was an Interstate 5, there were communities that lived there. And so I'm very glad that the gentleman from the 2nd District spoke about who was there first, because our communities were there first, and we deserve equitable treatment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of engrossed second substitute Senate Bill 5955. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Robertson, how do you vote? Representative Hackney, how do you vote? Representative Hackney, would you care to vote orally?
Yes, aye.
Representative Hackney votes aye. Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 83 yeas, 13 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, engrossed second substitute Senate Bill 5955 is declared passed. Senate Bill 5419. Clerk will read.
An act relating to removing the
Last
requirement
line.
RCW 41.06.142, strike sub 1, sub 4, and sub 5.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and Senate Bill 5419 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Senate Bill 5419 on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 39th Legislative District, Representative Eslick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is one of the easiest bills tonight that we're going to have. We don't get to do this very often, but we're actually going to stop some of our folks from doing some work. So it's removing the Washington State Institute of Public Policy outcome evaluation requirement. Please vote yes.
Further remarks? The good member from the 41st Legislative District, Representative Sen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If only we could all clean up and make some money, we'd be even happier. Please vote yes for this bill.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of Senate Bill 5419. Speakers about to start the roll call machine. Speakers have started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Berquist. Representative Clicker. Representative Davis. Representative Davis, how do you vote? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speakers about to lock the roll call machine. Speakers lock the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, Senate Bill 5419 is declared passed. Substitute Senate Bill 5919. Clerk will read.
An act relating to the sale of biogenic carbon. Insert the combustion of or processing of fossil fuels.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended. The substitute Senate Bill 5919 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 5919 on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 9th Legislative District, Representative Dye.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes there's a good idea and sometimes there's a great idea. This is a project that works on removing the hazardous methane gases from going into the atmosphere, but rather uses it for the benefit of all. This has been a project of love that's been taking place in Kitsap County for a long time, and now there's the opportunity to double down on that and capture the CO2 as well for economic use. CO2 has a great deal of industrial uses, and being able to use it both for wholesale and retail will just show how we can manage our landfill resources in different ways and be innovative in that space, and I urge a yes vote. Thank you.
Further remarks. The good member from the 29th Legislative District, Representative Mena.
Thank you, Speaker Bernowski. I agree. Please vote yes.
Further remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of substitute Senate Bill 5919. Speakers are about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative, does any member wish to change their vote? Speakers about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine, and clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, substitute Senate Bill 5919 is declared passed. Senate Bill 5952, clerk will read.
An act relating to aligning Deputy
Last
Inspector RCW 70.79.170.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended, and Senate Bill 5952 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Senate Bill 5952 on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 13th Legislative District, Representative Ibarra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this is another simple bill, I think. What this bill does is just modify the minimum qualifications for deputy boiler and pressure vessel inspectors to match the National Board of Boilers and Pressure Vessel Inspectors, just so we get more inspectors in the state of Washington. We have different qualifications in the state of Washington than the national, so we're just making the change so it's much easier to get those types of inspectors to work in the state of Washington. Please vote yes.
For the remarks, the good member from the 36th Legislative District, Representative Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very straightforward L&I request bill. Please vote yes. Thank you.
For the remarks, seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of Senate Bill 5952. Speaker is about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Jacobson, how do you vote? Any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker's locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, Senate Bill 5952 is declared passed. Substitute Senate Bill 6099. Clerk will read.
An act relating to creating the tribal opioid. Sub 2, Section 5 of this act takes effect July 1st, 2028.
With the consent of the House, the Appropriations Committee amendments will be adopted. Hearing no objection, so ordered. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended, and the substitute Senate Bill 6099 as amended by the House will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 6099 as amended by the House on third reading and final passage. Remarks, the good member from the 14th Legislative District, Representative Corey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Excited to rise in support of this important bill today and urge the body's adoption. Mr. Speaker, we have seen opioids ravaging communities across Washington state, and our tribes across Washington state have not been immune. I want to thank both the prime sponsor of this bill as well as the good gentleman from the 31st for all the work they've done in reaching out, in consultation, and working with our tribes across our state. It's been really important work. It's been moving to see them working together, and I want to thank their leadership for this. This bill will help in our fight across this state. I'm excited that we can partner with our tribes and again urge the body's adoption of this bill. Thank you.
Further remarks. The good member from the 40th Legislative District, Representative Lukanoff.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. It's good to see you today. I rise today in support of House Bill 6099. This bill is a reflection of the commitment and the relationship between Washington State and the Washington tribes. Mr. Speaker, you may not know, and I share with you, my Thlinkit name is Hikchasi. Who I am and where I come from is rooted in the bloodlines. Mr. Speaker, I share with you this concept to understand when a life is lost, when a Native American life is lost, it is a generational loss. For me, Mr. Speaker, I'm a generation maker. I'm a mom. If I were lost to my addiction, Mr. Speaker, I would have lost having the ability to have a daughter who carried the generation, who carried her grandmother's Indian name, Hikchasi. Mr. Speaker, this bill invests in Indian country. It invests in the Native Americans of Washington state. It invests in the preservation of generations of Native Americans whose land we stand on today, you and I, Mr. Speaker. This bill recognizes the collaboration and investment that Washington tribes are making across this state. We, Mr. Speaker, you and I, are seeing 18, 17, 19, 20, 21 facilities, Mr. Speaker, that are healing millions of Washingtonians, not just the people who look like me, Mr. Speaker, but 80% of those patients that are being touched and healed from this epidemic, Mr. Speaker, are Washingtonians, non-natives. Mr. Speaker, this account is a commitment that the Washington state, you and I, Mr. Speaker, elected representatives, and the Washington tribes are standing up to heal one Washington, because we know with this investment, this commitment from Washington state, Mr. Speaker, that we can do this together. I'm proud to stand here with you, Mr. Speaker, on the floor of the People's House, acknowledging that we're saving lives and we can only do this together. I urge you to vote yes with me, Mr. Speaker.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of substitute Senate Bill 6099 as amended by the House. The Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. The Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? The Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker's locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, substitute Senate Bill 6099 as amended by the House is declared passed. The good member from the 28th Legislative District, Representative Levitt, to call us to caucus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Democrats will caucus now.
The good member from the 17th Legislative District, Representative Harris.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm still here, Speaker, and the Republicans will caucus now.
The House will be at ease for purpose of caucus. House is now at ease. Be in order. Second reading of bills will take the following bills. Substitute Senate Bill 6121. Substitute Senate Bill 6301. Engrossed Senate Bill 6089. Second, substitute Senate Bill 5784. Senate Bill 6094. Substitute Senate Bill 5812. Substitute Senate Bill 5588. Senate Bill 5938. Engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6031. Senate Bill 5792. Engrossed Senate Bill 5816. Senate Bill 6080. Senate Bill 6215. Substitute Senate Bill 5934. Engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6069. Engrossed Senate Bill 5906. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 6121. Clerk will read.
An act relating to agricultural stage of impaired air quality as defined in RCW 78.15.3580.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and substitute Senate Bill 6121 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 6121 on third reading and final passage. Remarks, the good member from the 22nd Legislative District, Representative Dilia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rising in support of this bill today and hope you will join me. This bill simply creates a regulatory framework around flame cap kilns that provide a great environmentally sound method to burn agriculture and silvicultural products with very little greenhouse gas emissions. And we want to encourage this as there is a lot of biomass that is burned. And so this is a better way to do it. And this sets up a regulatory framework, urging a yes today.
Further remarks, the good member from the 13th Legislative District, Representative Ibarra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, very good bill. I think it's going to solve some problems when it comes to climate, and vote yes.
Further remarks, the good member from the 20th Legislative District, Representative Orcutt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really appreciate this bill here today. I've actually gone and met with, it's actually a constituent of mine that has asked for this bill. They've been having trouble with these flame cap kilns, getting them permitted to be used, because the Clean Air Agencies and DOE says that our current statutes classify them as a burn barrel, and they function much differently than a burn barrel. They function more like a burn pit would, which is totally legal. And so what these do is they burn extremely clean. In fact, I watched them put green material into one of these, and you could have read a book through it. There was no smoke coming out of it all. And what it will do is it will create biochar. And at some point, they will come along and they will shut the process down, and they will have a tremendous amount of biochar. And what this can do is, this is a way that they can do forest health treatments. This is a way that they can clean up landings after harvests. And there's a whole lot of other debris that can be cleaned up. And we're going to see more and more debris out in the forest because of some things that are happening in the paper market and the pulpwood market. So this is very, very important. It's good for the environment. It's actually much better for the environment than leaving this stuff lay around. So it's a very good process, a little bit of a tweak to the laws to make sure that this can be used, and that's going to help a lot of stuff happen that's good, and it will help with fire prevention. And that's a key with forest health and fire prevention. So please vote yes.
Further remarks. The good member from the 12th Legislative District, Representative Gaynor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It really is a good bill because it does address a solution that's come up in the last few years that's really been difficult to utilize. You know, if you are trying to do the forest treatments that were just mentioned, there hasn't been a real mechanism that was cost effective. And the flame cap kiln or air curtains, I mean, they are very effective in creating another amendment to the soil. I mean, it's really a great way to have a circular situation taking place within the ecosystem. And, you know, in the past, if you had slash or you were trying to clean up a landing, we just burned it. And there was really not a whole lot of benefit from that. But this not only allows the benefit, it is very, as I said, very environmentally friendly. The emissions are very limited, and it's very, very effective. And so, Mr. Speaker, this is a great step forward to really move forward to get a clean forest and utilize the biomass that is there in a way that makes it productive again. So I would encourage a yes. Thank you.
For the remarks, the good member from the 15th Legislative District, Representative Sandlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in favor of this legislation as well. Not only does it work in the forest, it can work in the wheat fields as well with the stubble and even the straw. And this biochar is very interesting. I think it's going to be very useful and a circular market effect for a byproduct from things that grow in our fields in eastern Washington. Urge your support.
For the remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of substitute Senate Bill 6121. Speakers are about to start the roll call machine. Speakers, start the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Rude, how do you vote? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speakers are about to lock the roll call machine. Speakers, lock the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, substitute Senate Bill 6121 is declared passed. Substitute Senate Bill 6301, clerk will read.
An act relating to Basic Law Control Act of 1973.
There are amendments. Amendment 1251, clerk will read.
On page 1, line 7.
Line.
Internal references accordingly.
The member from the 44th to move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of Amendment 1251.
It's been moved and seconded that Amendment 1251 be adopted. Remarks, the good member from the 44th Legislative District, Representative Donaghy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment simply removes the ability of anybody to donate to specific classes going through training and allows them to continue donating to the Training Commission as a whole, and still allows for the donation, or does also allow for the donation of property. Thank you. Please vote
For the
yes.
remarks, the good member from the 14th Legislative District, Representative Mossbrucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and we concur.
For the remarks, seeing none, the question for the House is adoption of Amendment 1251. Proceed to an oral vote. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and substitute Senate Bill 6301 as amended by the House will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 6301 is amended by the House on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 44th Legislative District, Representative Donaghy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This just simply allows that criminal justice training centers can accept funds and other donations, including property, to help facilitate the expansion of our criminal justice training center facilities. Please vote yes.
For the remarks, the good member from the 14th Legislative District, Representative Mossbrucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And this bill is going to address the issue that we have, and that is the last data I looked at was it was a 6-month waiting period for law enforcement officers to get into this academy. As you know, the shortage that we have of law enforcement officers per capita in the U.S., this is a solution. This is one of the many solutions we need to get law enforcement back out into this career that we need them so much for. I appreciate the bill coming forward, and I also want to make sure that we understand that this is just one more tool in order to mend the relationship between community and law enforcement. I recommend a yes.
For the remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of substitute Senate Bill 6301 as amended by the House. Speakers are about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Cheney, how do you vote? Representative Cheney, does any member wish to change their vote? Speakers are about to lock the roll call machine. Speakers lock the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 90 yeas, 6 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, substitute Senate Bill 6301 as amended by the House is declared passed. Engrossed Senate Bill 6089. Clerk will read.
An act relating to eliminating
Line.
certain Sub 3, this section expires June 30th, 2025.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and engrossed Senate Bill 6089 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Engrossed Senate Bill 6089 on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 16th Legislative District, Representative Rood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the interest of time, I'll be very brief. This is a workforce development bill for electrical inspectors. It eliminates 2 pathways that aren't currently used and directs Department of Labor and Industries and Washington Cities, Association of Washington Cities, to work on identifying alternative pathways. So asking for your support.
Further remarks, the good member from the 36th Legislative District, Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Further remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of gross Senate Bill 6089. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative, does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, engrossed Senate Bill 6089 is declared passed. Second substitute Senate Bill 5784. Clerk will read.
An act relating to deer and
Last
elk
line.
damage. Sub 3. This section expires July 1st, 2028.
With the consent of the House, the Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee amendments will be adopted. Hearing no objection, so ordered. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended, and second substitute Senate Bill 5784, as amended by the House, will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Second substitute Senate Bill 5784, as amended by the House on third reading and final passage. Remarks, the good member from the 24th Legislative District, Representative Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for letting me participate in the speed dating portion of the legislative session. This is a bill that we have a program to help farmers when elk and deer damage their crops. This bill makes some necessary adjustments, also adds some additional funding, and there have been a few instances where farmers have taken advantage of this. We've tightened that up so that won't happen in the future. And then finally, it's a partnership with the Yakama Nation to continue to partner on the pilot project for the elk migration. Ask for a yes vote.
Further remarks, the good member from the 13th Legislative District, Representative Dent.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My good friend explained this bill very well. It's a great bill, truly needed in the agriculture world, and I encourage a yes vote. Thank you.
Further remarks, the good member from the 18th Legislative District, Representative Cheney.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. What it may surprise you to learn is that even in my suburban district, we often have problems with deer and elk. Mr. Speaker, we have some beautiful elk herds on the side of Mount St. Helens. But occasionally those elk herds wander their way down into the valleys and into our suburban communities. And oftentimes we have small garden plots, and in fact some larger plots that are primarily blueberries in my district. And those deer and elk love to come and occasionally munch on a good blueberry. I would prefer they enjoy the huckleberries up on the side of Mount St. Helens, but they occasionally come wander into the blueberry fields. So I would encourage a yes vote on this bill because it will help protect those particularly smaller farmers in my district who can sell their blueberries at the local Hawkinson Blueberry Festival. If you haven't been there in June, I'd welcome you to come. And urging a yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
Further remarks, the good member from the 12th Legislative District, Representative Gaynor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really appreciate this bill because as a pear grower, someone who has experienced an awful lot of deer and elk damage, it is good to have a program that will actually come out and assess and help offset some of the damage. Unfortunately, what really needs to happen is we need to be more proactive in trying to keep the animals out of our orchards. Now, it's a little bit different with an orchard versus a field, and the way the crops get damaged, it's harder to assess how much damage is being done. But Mr. Speaker, as I said, I do appreciate the fact that there is an awareness of how destructive these animals can be. Man, they're beautiful animals, and I don't like to remove them myself, but I sure appreciate when they're moved out of the orchard and they're not, nibbling on the buds of the trees and basically creating a situation where we won't even have a crop, which makes it really difficult then to assess how much damage you've gotten. So, Mr. Speaker, although this is a good step, What I would encourage Fish and Wildlife to do is continue to be more proactive with growers in providing solutions to help them raise good crops for the people of the state of Washington and the world. So I would encourage a yes on this.
Further remarks? The good member from the 19th Legislative District, Representative McIntyre.
Thank you and good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. If you have not been convinced as of yet to vote yes on this great piece of legislation, I will try to persuade you. In Southwest Washington in the 19th District, we also have many herd of elk and deer and a lot of farmland, and so there's a lot of crossover where elk are going from one wooded area to another and crossing through a valley and going through farmland. So I can definitely see and appreciate legislation like this. It warms my heart that the legislature is paying attention to the contributions of deer and elk, what they do for our environment, our ecosystem, and our economy. As you probably well know, there's something called hoof rot, and it makes it very difficult as the hooves of elk kind of just deteriorate. They have trouble navigating those steep slopes on the hillsides and mountainsides, and tend to go into the easier to tread areas in farmland. And it makes it a little bit difficult for farmers. And Mr. Speaker, every time I plant little apple trees, those suckers come and bite them in half. And so if we can do something about that, that'd be great. For now, though, this is, I think, a good start and something that will help folks in my neck of the woods. So please vote yes.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of second substitute Senate bill. Second substitute Senate Bill 5784 is amended by the House on third reading and final passage. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Rule, how do you vote? Representative Jacobson, how do you vote? Representative Dewar, how do you vote? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 91 yeas, 5 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, second substitute Senate Bill 5784 is amended by the House is declared passed. Senate Bill 6094, clerk will read.
An act relating to
Last
aligning
line.
statutory the federal employer incentive program as provided in RCW 41.05.068.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and Senate Bill 6094 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Senate Bill 6094 on third reading and final passage. Remarks? The good member from the 34th Legislative District, Representative Fitzgibbon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We currently provide subsidies for health security for retired public employees. In our in our operating budget, we've made sure that these resources are available not just for prescription drug coverage as required under statute, but also for other medical insurance premiums. This law would just make that budget language that we have incorporated into recent operating budgets permanent to support the health security of our retired public servants. I urge your support.
Further remarks? The good member from the 14th Legislative District, Representative Corey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman, said it well. Please vote yes.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of Senate Bill 6094. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, Senate Bill 6094 is declared passed. Substitute Senate Bill 5812. Clerk will read.
An act relating to responding to
Last
electric,
line.
any resulting policy or legislative recommendations.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and substitute Senate Bill 5812 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 5812 on third reading and final passage. Remarks? The good member from the 19th Legislative District, Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Electric vehicle fires, when the battery burns, burn very hot. What this bill will do is it will help our state plan to react appropriately to putting out these very hot fires. Something I'm sure that if you were listening to me in your day job, you would appreciate. In any event, a good planning bill for dealing with electric vehicle fires when they do happen. the particulars of how they burn. Please vote yes.
Further remarks? The good member from the 44th Legislative District, Representative Donaghy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree. I'm sure you would too. Please vote yes.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of Substitute Senate Bill 5812. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, Substitute Senate Bill 5812 is declared passed. Substitute Senate Bill 5588. Clerk will read.
An act relating to the mental health sentencing
line.
alternatives. Guardian is the perpetrator of the offense.
The Community Safety, Justice, and Reentry Committee amendment will not be adopted. Hearing no objection, so ordered. The Appropriations Committee amendment is before us for purposes of amendment. Amendment 1180. Clerk will read.
On page 5, beginning on line 4, internal references accordingly.
The member from the 32nd who move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of Amendment 1180.
It's been moved and seconded that Amendment 1180 be adopted. Remarks? The good member from the 32nd Legislative District, Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This simply changes who is doing the reimbursement in the bill. Please vote yes.
Further remarks? The good member from the 14th Legislative District, Representative Mossbrucker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and we thank the gentlelady for bringing this amendment forward. Vote yes.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is adoption of Amendment 1180. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. There are further amendments. Amendment 1255. Clerk will read.
On page 6, beginning on line 1, all of section 2.
The member from the 32nd to move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of Amendment 1255.
It's been moved and seconded that Amendment 1255 be adopted. Remarks? The good member from the 32nd Legislative District, Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This reverts MCO obligations to current law. Please vote yes.
Further remarks? The good member from the 14th Legislative District, Representative Mossbrucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank the gentlelady for listening to those stakeholders who were concerned and recommend yes.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is adoption of Amendment 1255. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. Another question for the House is adoption of the Appropriations Committee amendment as amended. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The amendment as amended is adopted. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and Substitute Senate Bill 5588 as amended by the House will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 5588 as amended by the House on third reading and final passage. Remarks? The good member from the 32nd Legislative District, Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is important public safety legislation to address individuals whose criminogenic behavior is rooted in serious mental illness. Please vote yes.
For the remarks, the good member from the 14th Legislative District, Representative Mossbrucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We need to put more investments and money into those who are suffering from mental illness. This bill is a very thoughtful bill that's worked through both chambers to try to find solutions to that problem. We want to make sure that we're doing this in a thoughtful way so that these people who are struggling with mental illness aren't reoffending and ending up back in the community without the resources they need. I ask for a yes vote.
For the remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of Substitute Senate Bill 5588 as amended by the House. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, Substitute Senate Bill 5588 as amended by the House is declared passed. Senate Bill 5938, clerk will read.
An act relating to modifying insert education in alliance with skilled early childhood educators.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and Senate Bill 5938 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Senate Bill 5938 on third reading and final passage. Remarks? The good member from the 23rd Legislative District, Representative Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Keeping moms and babies together helps end generational incarceration. This bill just extends for the moms that are with their babies in the prison, in the baby unit. They can go home, instead of 12 months, they can go home 18 months early and be monitored there. Please say yes.
Further remarks? The good member from the 14th Legislative District, Representative Mossbrucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We concur. I think that when we can keep mothers with their babies, then everyone wins. I like what the gentlelady said about changing the trajectory of the generation before them. And this my favorite part about this is that we're teaching them skills that they need and can use a lifetime to care for their infant, and then also training in classes. So I recommend a yes vote.
The remarks. The good member from the 25th Legislative District, Representative Jacobson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just briefly, I couldn't love this more. It makes my heart happy to think about mamas and babies being together. I think that babies need their mamas, and I think that the training is great. So I just wanted to step in as a mom of 7. I just love this bill. Thank you so much.
For the remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of Senate Bill 5938. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, Senate Bill 5938 is declared passed. Engrossed, substitute Senate Bill 6031. Clerk will read.
An act relating to modifying the
Last line.
Insert to hold a commercial driver's license.
With the consent of the House, the Appropriations Committee amendments will be adopted. Hearing no objection, so ordered. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6031 as amended by the House will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6031 as amended by the House on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 14th Legislative District, Representative Corey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Apologize for the delay there. Good bill, really trying to understand where we're going with student transportation. We liked it in its original form, but we've got some more tailored version that we still think will help us better understand in the future what we need to do to support student transportation. Urging a yes vote.
For the remarks, the good member from the 49th Legislative District, Representative Stonier.
I agree. This is a good idea. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please vote yes.
Remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6031 as amended by the House. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative, does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 90 yeas, 6 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6031 as amended by the House is declared passed. Senate Bill 5792. Clerk will read.
An act relating to exempting
Last
buildings,
line.
drawings, or specifications.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended, and Senate Bill 5792 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Senate Bill 5792 on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 16th Legislative District, Representative Clicker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good bill, especially nowadays with what's going on in the tightness for having inadequate housing and not housing at all. So this particular bill makes it possible that it creates some exemptions for up to 3 stories, multi-level living quarters for people as long as there's retail space or adequate parking. So this will help kind of relieve some of the concerns for the shortage the shortage of housing. I ask you to vote yes on the bill.
Further remarks, the good member from the 49th Legislative District, Representative Stonier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The gentleman described why this bill is important. Please vote yes.
Further remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of Senate Bill 5792. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker's locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, Senate Bill 5792 is declared passed. Engrossed, Senate Bill 5816. Clerk will read.
An act relating to alcohol
Last
server
line.
permits during tasting activities under RCW 66.24.363.
There are no amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended, and engrossed Senate Bill 5816 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Engrossed, Senate Bill 5816 on third reading and final passage. Remarks, the good member from the 49th Legislative District, Representative Wiley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unbeknownst to me until recently, people with felony convictions couldn't get an alcohol server permit. The food and beverage industry is an industry which is perfect for people between jobs, making new starts, and needing to earn some money right away. That's an industry that's short of people these days. We've done a lot to help people ease back into the community. This is a good bill that helps do that, and it has sideboards for common sense protections for the public. It's very good. Vote yes.
For the remarks, the good member from the 17th Legislative District, Representative Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We agree. Vote yes.
The remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of engrossed Senate Bill 5816. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Steele, Representative Caldeer, how do you vote? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker's locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, engrossed Senate Bill 5816 is declared passed. Senate Bill 6080, clerk will read.
An act relating to simplifying
Last
the funding.
line.
Insert new section, Section 2. This act takes effect July 1st, 2025.
There are no amendments with the consent of the House. The rules will be suspended, and Senate Bill 6080 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Senate Bill 6080 on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 14th Legislative District, Representative Corey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm excited to be voting yes for this good bill today that will do some simplifying of the funding provisions for the statewide tourism marketing account. Urge a yes. Thank you.
For the remarks, the good member from the 32nd Legislative District, Representative Rio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, it's a great bill. Please vote yes.
For the remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of Senate Bill 6080. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, Senate Bill 6080 is declared passed. Senate Bill 6215, clerk will read.
An act relating to improving tax and
Line.
revenue, January 1st, 2034.
There are no amendments with the consent of the House. The rules will be suspended, and Senate Bill 6215 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Senate Bill 6215 on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 20th Legislative District, Representative Orcutt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rising in support of this legislation today. This is just technical fixes to our tax laws. A lot of things get tweaked throughout the year and sometimes, or throughout the session, and then sometimes you have to come back and make sure everything technically works together, and that's what this bill does. It doesn't change any tax rate. It doesn't change the incidence of tax. So, Mr. Speaker, no taxpayers will be harmed with the passage of this bill. Thank you.
For the remarks, the good member from the 44th Legislative District, Representative Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We concur. Please vote yes.
For the remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of Senate Bill 6215. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, Senate Bill 6215 is declared passed. Substitute Senate Bill 5934. Clerk will read.
An act relating to pollinator
Last
habitat,
line.
building ignition zone.
With the consent of the House, the local government committee amendments will be adopted. Hearing no objections, so ordered. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended, and substitute Senate Bill 5934, as amended by the House, will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 5934 as amended by the House on third reading and final passage. Remarks, the good member from the 12th Legislative District, Representative Gaynor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For many people, there's not an opportunity to really see a lot of flowering, vegetation, and particularly in the urban setting, there's a lot of asphalt and buildings, and there really isn't a real opportunity for a lot of pollination to be taking place. This bill just really encourages bees to be propagated and housed within urban environments. It just says that the cities are not able to prohibit, but they are able to restrict bee houses and actually bee hives. They're mason bee houses, I guess, which has always been is it a house or a hive? But in this case, we're encouraging both. Please vote yes.
Further remarks? The good member from the 3rd Legislative District, Representative Vercelli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree. Also, congrats to Julia Costello, who is getting her gold award from Girl Scouts for bringing this forward. Vote yes.
Further remarks? The good member from the 4th Legislative District, Representative Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill actually was brought forward by the senator of my district, the 4th Legislative District, and as the good member from the 3rd District just said, this is a Girl Scout who is getting an award from the National Girl Scouts of America. Pollination is tremendously important to our communities and to our agriculture communities, and this bill is modeled after a bill from a few years ago that focuses on the habitat for bees, butterflies, moths, wasps, flies, beetles, and bird species, including bats. This bill is designed to address pollination because it's in decline, and we'd like to promote further pollination. And we want to thank the Girl Scout that brought this forward. Just want to give a shout out for how much I do support the Girl Scouts organization and what great work that they do with young women across the United States. Thank you.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of substitute Senate Bill 5934 as amended by the House. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, substitute Senate Bill 5934 as amended by the House is declared passed. The engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6069. Clerk will read.
An act relating to improving private Washington unemployment tax credits to employers in this state.
There are amendments. The Consumer Protection and Business Committee amendment will not be adopted. Hearing no objections, so ordered. The Appropriation Committee amendments will not be adopted. Hearing no objection, so ordered. There are amendments. Amendment 1252 is withdrawn. Hearing no objections, so ordered. There are further amendments. Amendment 1232, clerk will read.
Strike everything after the enacting
clause. Last line.
Correct the title.
The good member from the 37th to move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of Amendment 1232.
It's been moved to second that Amendment 1232 be adopted. There are amendments to the amendment. Amendment 1233, clerk will read.
On page 3, line 21, insert and how to opt out of the program at any time.
The member from the 48th to move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of Amendment 1233.
It's been moved and seconded that Amendment 1233 be adopted. Remarks, the good member from the 48th Legislative District, Representative Wallen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This just makes it very clear that covered employees have every opportunity to opt out of the program and directs the governing board to put plans and procedures in place to make sure that is extremely clear. Urging the body's adoption.
For the remarks. The good member from the 31st Legislative District, Representative Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with the good lady from the 48th. This is a good amendment. It provides additional opportunities and timeframes for those that wish to opt out of the program. I urge support.
For the remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is adoption of Amendment 1233. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. There are further amendments. Amendment 1253, clerk will read.
On page 7, line 12 of the striking amendment, financial management.
The member from the 37th to move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of Amendment 1253.
It's been moved and seconded that Amendment 1253 be adopted. Remarks, the good member from the 37th Legislative District, Representative Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment simply replaces the Office of Financial Management for the Department of Financial Institutions in the underlying measure. I ask for your support.
For the remarks, the good member from the 31st Legislative District, Representative Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While this is probably the better of the two amendments that were offered regarding the placement of the administrative and support work that's going to be done for the work group. I do have some concerns, as do many on this side, that having an OFM, which is part of the governor's office, is probably not the best place to support a legislatively driven work group and task force. We're trying to pull together all kinds of thoughts and experiences and such as we go along and get this on the right track. You'll see a mixed vote. Thank you.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is adoption of Amendment 1253. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. There are further amendments. Amendment 1254, clerk will read.
On page 7, line 12
As
of the striking amendment, strike financial institutions and insert retirement systems.
The member from the 31st to move adoption of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I respectfully withdraw this far superior amendment.
Amendment 1254 is withdrawn. Hearing no objection, so ordered. There are no further amendments. Now we will return to the floor striker, Amendment 1232 as amended. Remarks, the good member from the 37th Legislative District, Representative Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This striking amendment as amended does many things. I ask for your support and will reserve further comments till final passage.
Further remarks, the good member from the 31st Legislative District, Representative Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge your support of the striking amendment so we can have that further debate.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is adoption of Amendment 1232 as amended. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The amendment as amended is adopted. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and a gross substitute Senate Bill 6069 as amended by the House will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objection, so ordered. A gross substitute Senate Bill 6069 is amended by the House on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 30th Legislative District, Representative Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is important legislation to ensure that our values around every Washingtonian having a secure retirement are realized. The underlying policy, Mr. Speaker, is really about ensuring that those employees who don't have retirement security offered by their employers get an opportunity to have that retirement security offered through a state-run plan that gives them the chance to opt out if they don't want to participate for any reason, but really creates the pathway to ensure that every Washingtonian gets that opportunity. It also, Mr. Speaker, ensures that as Washingtonians save through this program, it's going to defer costs to the state to the tune of almost $6 billion in state assistance that would otherwise be required from not being able to save for your retirement. I'm going to reserve remarks, Mr. Speaker, but encouraging yes.
Further remarks. The good member from the 18th Legislative District, Representative McClintock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to urge a no vote on this bill. My couple of concerns for me are the opt-out. I would prefer an opt-in amendment on this or an option on this. And then also I worked in human resources for 10 years, did recruiting, onboarding, and the amount of paperwork that goes into onboarding employees is quite extensive. And we continue to put more and more burden on our small businesses, the business owners that don't always have an HR person that can facilitate those new employees. And this is just another burden when you can walk into a bank and open an IRA account. I think the education piece is, I really like that part because I think that people need to be educated on these options, but I don't think that having employers facilitate this is the solution. So I encourage a no vote. Thank you.
For the remarks, the good member from the 37th Legislative District, Representative Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I very much agree with the words of the good lady from the 18th. Indeed, I believe many members on this side of the aisle share that concern around the opt-out nature. However, we have been informed that when there is an opt-out, more people still save versus when you have an opt-in, as we have had, Mr. Speaker, for the last several years, we don't get as many people saving. Mr. Speaker, I did say that I was going to speak a bit about the striking amendment. What we did was we expanded the membership of the governing body, and more important, we created a 2-year runway before this program actually takes effect, so that the governing body will take the time to go and consult in the four corners of this state to all of the affected employers and all of the affected employees. Because, Mr. Speaker, the opt-out is on employees, not on employers. And we must make sure that employers have an understanding of what kind of penalties might exist if they don't even know that this is a requirement that is placed on them. Mr. Speaker, it also does make sure that the legislature is kept apprised of the progress of the governing body before Washington Saves takes effect. And finally, I want to clarify that it is important that we ensure that those who are often left out of government processes because they are language isolated or our government institutions forget that these also are businesses are included in the outreach. This particular measure is very thoughtful and deliberate about directing OFM to take such steps. I ask for your support so that we can guarantee a better retirement security for every Washingtonian. Please vote yes.
For the remarks, the good member from the 31st Legislative District, Representative Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, Rising opposed to the legislation. Quite frankly, I think it has a laudable goal. As was pointed out, we're trying to set people up for retirement so we, as a society, don't end up having to support people through our social systems. Helping folks is really important, and helping them plan is good. And I said from the very beginning when this bill came to me in December, why can't we do an educational campaign? Why can't we do an informational campaign? Why can't we do something other than a mandate? And that's many of the concerns. As was just pointed out, this is a mandate on employers. The employees can opt out, but it's a mandate on employers. And that auto IRA is a grave concern. We heard from the previous speaker, 2 speakers ago, that it can be a drain on some of our smaller businesses. And we're trying to grow our small businesses and so they can have additional employees. There were a lot of rushed, last-minute changes and amendments, many of them good. The expansion of the governing body and the task force work, I think, is important, but a lot of moving pieces. And that just provides for me, Mr. Speaker, a fear that this Washington Saves is going to end up like the last employee-mandated benefit, Washington Cares, which just is upside down and in trouble. And we don't want to have that. The concerns and fears, I hope they don't come true. I wish we'd taken a little bit longer to set up the framework, build that foundation for a successful work group and governing board. I'm hoping that things like our awesome financial literacy bill that we passed this year will be a foundation for generations to come, and that we won't need to do this stuff in the future. But with that said, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of concern. There is some good in this bill. But at this moment, unfortunately, I cannot support it.
For the remarks, the good member from the 25th Legislative District, Representative Jacobson.
Again, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, briefly, I am opposed to this not because I don't want people to save. I do, and compound interest is about my favorite thing among many favorite things. But I don't think that for the people that are being enrolled in this, and they do have an opt-out, but they're going to automatically be enrolled unless they opt out. I don't think this is necessarily the best vehicle for them. To have a pre-tax vehicle for someone in a super low income bracket is not always the best idea. I mean, we can encourage saving in other ways. And the market provides that you can go down to any bank and get yourself a Roth IRA or whatever vehicle you'd like to save, or just a savings account. So I think we're creating a bureaucracy sort of in search of a problem when we do this. So for that reason, I'm also a no. Thank you.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of a gross to substitute Senate Bill 6069 as amended by the House. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Rule, does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker's locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 66 yeas, 30 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, engrossed to substitute Senate Bill 6069 as amended by the House is declared passed. Engrossed to Senate Bill 5906. Clerk will read.
An act relating to implementing.
Last line.
Insert new section, Section 3. This act takes effect July 1st, 2024.
With the consent of the House, the Appropriations Committee amendment will be adopted. Hearing no objections, so ordered. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and engrossed Senate Bill 5906 as amended by the House will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Engrossed Senate Bill 5906 as amended by the House on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 17th Legislative District, Representative Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is offered by my good senator and ask for your approval.
For the remarks. The good member from the 28th Legislative District, Representative Levitt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Grateful to the good lady for bringing this forward to address our opiate and fentanyl crisis. Urgent yes.
For the remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of engrossed to Senate Bill 5906 as amended by the House. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker's locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, engrossed Senate Bill 5906 as amended by the House is declared passed. The House will be at ease momentarily. The House is now at ease. The House will be in order. Second reading of bills will take the following bill. Substitute Senate Bill 5667. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 5667. Clerk will read.
An act relating to eligibility enrollment will be calculated.
The Capital Budget Committee amendments will not be adopted. Hearing no objections, so ordered. There are no further amendments. With the consent of the House, the rules will be suspended and substitute Senate Bill 5667 will be advanced to third reading. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Substitute Senate Bill 5667 on third reading and final passage. Remarks. The good member from the 13th Legislative District, Representative Dent.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a great bill. We worked on this for a few years, trying to get to this point. And, you know, the riparian easements in our state are very important to the for the production of salmon, and I'm encouraging a yes vote. Thank you.
Further remarks. The good member from the 24th Legislative District, Representative Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good to see you again after coming around the horn. Ask for a yes vote on this good bill.
Further remarks. Seeing none, the question for the House is final passage of substitute Senate Bill 5667. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker's locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 96 yeas, 0 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, substitute Senate Bill 5667 is declared passed. With the consent of the House will immediately reconsider the vote by which engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6069 as amended by the House passed the House. Hearing no objection, so ordered. On reconsideration, the question for the House is final passage of engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6069 as amended by the House on reconsideration. Speaker's about to start the roll call machine. Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Fye, Representative Slatter, how do you vote? Does any member wish to change their vote? Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. Speaker has locked the roll call machine. Clerk will take the record.
Mr. Speaker, there are 57 yeas, 39 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6069 as amended by the House by reconsideration has been declared passed. Second reading of bills will take the following bill. Engrossed Senate Bill 5241. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Engrossed Senate Bill 5241. Clerk will read.
An act relating to material changes.
Last line.
Persons or circumstances is not affected.
The House will be at ease momentarily. The House is now at ease.